In 1995, Manny Pacquiao turned pro. 26 years later, Pacquiao's career is still going strong, still fighting the top competition in his division. And over the 26-year period, he's faced many top opponents, been in many top fights, and has continued to climb the all-time pound-for-pound rankings. Today, we'll explore the top 10 victories in Manny Pacquiao's career. Number 10, Keith Thurman. On July 20th, 2019, Manny Pacquiao faced off against 29-0, undefeated Keith Thurman, a top welterweight. Many were writing off Manny Pacquiao, being that he was over 40 years old. But in the fight, Pacquiao put Thurman on the canvas and won a close decision and became, once again, the welterweight champion of the world. Number 9, Timothy Bradley. April 12, 2014, Manny Pacquiao would once again face off against Timothy Bradley. A rematch from the highly controversial decision that Timothy Bradley would get against Manny Pacquiao in 2012. This was also one fight removed from Pacquiao's KO loss to Juan Marquez. Pacquiao would come back from the Marquez loss and the Bradley controversial defeat to beat Bradley in the rematch by unanimous decision. Number 8, Antonio Margarito. On November 13, 2010, Manny Pacquiao would face Antonio Margarito, attempting to win a title in his 8th weight class. This was for the WBC junior middleweight title. He would go on to punish Margarito for 12 rounds, abusing him with speed and angles as Margarito's corner refused to stop the fight. He would go on to do permanent damage to Margarito's eye. Margarito would go on to lose to Cotto 2 fights later as the fight was stopped due to Margarito's eye. This would become Pacquiao's 8th title in his 8th separate weight class. Number 7, Miguel Cotto. On November 14, 2009, Manny Pacquiao would have his first fight against an elite, in his prime, top 147-pounder. Miguel Cotto's only loss up to that point was a controversial one to Antonio Margarito. Pacquiao would go on to batter Cotto on his way to a 12th round stoppage. Cotto would have his moments early in the fight, but from the fourth round on, Pacquiao's speed and angles would be too much for the slower, bigger Cotto. This fight would solidify Manny Pacquiao, the smaller fighter, as a legit welterweight. Number 6, Ricky Hatton. On May 2nd, 2009, Manny Pacquiao would face 45-1 Ricky Hatton. Hatton's only loss up to that point was to Mayweather by a 10th round TKO. Hatton was coming off of 2 straight wins since the Mayweather loss. At the end of the second round, Pacquiao would land an earth-shattering left hand that would turn Pacquiao craze into a Pacquiao frenzy. In one of the most brutal knockouts of our era, Ricky Hatton's face would plant on the ground and Manny Pacquiao's hands would lift to the air. Number 5, Erik Morales 3. On November 18, 2016, Manny Pacquiao would face off again with Erik Morales for the WBC 130-pound belt. This was the third fight between the two rivals, their third fight in less than 2 years, the rubber match from the previous 2 fights that were split between the 2 fighters. Pacquiao would go on to punish Morales for 3 rounds. Morales would infamously shake his head from the canvas in the 3rd round to his corner as the fight was then stopped. This put the finishing touches on another Pacquiao rivalry. Number 4, Erik Morales 2. On January 21st, 2006, Pacquiao and Morales would run it back from the fight in 2005 where Morales would win a close decision against Pacquiao. Morales was coming off of a loss to Zahir Rahim a couple months prior, but as expected, he would once again elevate his game for Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao would go on to avenge his loss from a year prior to Erik Morales. This was a close fight on the cards through 9 rounds, but the fight would be stopped in the 10th round, and Pacquiao would get his revenge against Erik Morales. Number 3, Juan Manuel Marquez 2. This fight took place March 15, 2008 for the WBC 130-pound title. This was 4 years after the initial debated draw between Marquez and Pacquiao. In between these two fights, Pacquiao would face Morales 3 times, Marco Antonio Barrera a second time, and Jorge Solis, which signifies how tough Pacquiao's strength of schedule would be. Pacquiao would go on to win a split decision 112-115, 115-112, 114-113, and would strike his first blow against Juan Manuel Marquez in what would turn out to be a fierce 4-fight rivalry. Number 2, Marco Antonio Barrera. On November 15th, 2003 at the Alamo Dome, Pacquiao and Barrera would face off for the Ring Magazine 126-pound championship. Pacquiao would go down in the first round in a slip that was called a knockdown. Barrera would go down in the 3rd and 11th rounds, and the fight would be waved off in the 11th round, TKO victory for Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao was ahead big on the scorecards and separated himself from Barrera in this fight. This was Pacquiao's first signature victory and would introduce him to the American casual boxing fans. Number 1, Oscar De La Hoya. On December 6, 2008, Manny Pacquiao would move up from lightweight to welterweight to face off against the bigger, stronger Oscar De La Hoya. I already know what you're saying. How can you pick Oscar De La Hoya as Manny Pacquiao's biggest victory when Oscar De La Hoya was well past his prime at that point? What people seem to forget is that when the opening bell sounded, Oscar De La Hoya was an over 3-1 betting favorite against the younger, smaller Manny Pacquiao. Casual fans and boxing experts and pundits alike expected the bigger, stronger De La Hoya to punish Manny Pacquiao with punching power and be too much in size for the smaller Pacquiao. What ended up happening was De La Hoya's size was used against him. The smaller, fresher, faster, quicker Manny Pacquiao would come in and batter Oscar De La Hoya over 7 rounds with precision punching, angles, and power, and getting a career-defining win against Oscar De La Hoya as he refused to come out for the opening bell of the 8th round. After this fight, Manny Pacquiao would go from boxing star to international superstar.